I think about imposter syndrome a lot, and I decided to kind of dig into the science of it. Like, why? Like, what evolutionary purpose could it possibly be serving? And I found some really interesting things, and I want to share them with you guys. But I also came to the conclusion that it doesn't matter. Let's talk about all the people that we widely regard as great beyond reproach that not only admit they feel imposter syndrome, but they also openly talk about it. And one of the ones that had some of the most interesting things I think to say about it is Maya Angelou, right? She published 11 books. She won 3 Pulitzer Prizes, and she was still worried that she would be found out. Viola Davis, Michelle Obama, Oprah, Tom Hanks worries that people are going to discover he's a fraud. He says that he'll be worried that he has to go do this thing and that he's not going to be able to perform to the ability that people think he should be able to. And then that means people are going to find out he's a fake, and he's gonna have to fake it through it. And if he does that, there's a chance he might find out. And if he gets found out, then it's a doomsday. Now, isn't that interesting? Because what I'm noticing about imposter syndrome is that it is all in these black and white frames of mind, right? We're all or nothing. It's not that he thinks oh, I'm going to have to fake it through it. And if I'm having a bad day, people are going to be like, huh, Tom's a little off today. No, it's going to be the end of my career. That's what he's thinking. Tom Hanks, you guys. And isn't that what we're thinking? Like when imposter syndrome is really has the microphone in our head. We're like, oh shoot, they're gonna find us out. My blogging business is gonna implode. And all the repercussions that means, right? It turns out that I can't actually make this blogging thing work, just like everybody said. Um, you know, all that money I'm making from my blog is going to go away. I'm going to have to go back to my 9 to 5 job, or I'm going to be stuck in my 9 to 5 job forever, right? We make our imposter syndrome mean a ton of really huge consequences, and it's really scary. Another thing, John Steinbeck, he said, I'm not a writer. I've been fooling myself and everyone else. John Steinbeck. Okay. Albert Einstein described himself as an involuntary swindler. He just pulled the wool over everybody's eye. The next time you are imposter syndroming yourself, I want you to think about how Maya Angelou also thought that she was a fraud and would be found out, and how ridiculous that sounds. When I was a kid, I failed a geography test, and I'd never failed a test before in elementary school, and I ran out the room crying because I thought it meant I failed 4th grade. And now, looking back on it, we're like, oh, 4th grade Kelly, that's not how it works. That's what we're doing every time we are catastrophizing with our imposter syndrome in our head. We're a fraud. They're going to find out. My business is going to implode, right? That's the same thing as Kelly getting an F on her 4th grade geography test and thinking it meant she was failing the 4th grade. It is just as silly. People who study the imposter syndrome for a living, they actually call it the imposter phenomenon. And that's because we don't entirely understand why it happens. But they have some theories. And one of them is that it creates our imposter syndrome, our inner critic creates a dissonance in our head when somebody gives us praise. So somebody tells me, you're really great at writing blog post headlines. I wish I could write blog post headlines like you. And in my head, I'm flashing back to all of my hundreds of super, super crap headlines that I wrote as a brand new blogger, but they don't see that. And so it creates this dissonance in our head. And it happens so fast that we don't even realize it's happening. We just realize that all of a sudden we feel like a fraud, right? We just realize that we have a bad feeling all of a sudden, like we're going to be found out. So it's creating these eating thoughts in our head about what we're being told, or even what we're being presented evidence with, right? Like, let's go back to Maya Angelou. She had 3 Pulitzer Prizes. She's being presented with evidence that she is great at her craft. But in her head, she's flashing back to all the rough drafts all the really rough drafts, all the rough drafts that ended up in the garbage can because they were so bad. And so researchers think that this is where the imposter phenomenon comes from. These two opposing thoughts we're trying to hold in our head. We know what's going on. We know that we just weren't born this way and that we had to struggle a lot to get here and we had to do a lot of practice and we had to do a lot of not being great to get to the point where this person's telling us we're great. And it causes this clash in our head, and the result is imposter syndrome. I don't know if that helps you. It helps me to understand what is actually going on up that creates this. Furthermore, they found that nobody is immune. Everyone has this happening, except for maybe like sociopaths and psychopaths. Except for robots. But what they did find is that the effect on people were different. And I give you guys 3 guesses who wasn't affected, and it rhymes with Schweit Schwinn. White men. It's not to say they're not affected at all. Of course they are. It's not to say that they don't get it. Of course they do. But disproportionately, it doesn't affect the rest of their life. They still feel it, but somehow it doesn't affect the rest of their life. And in particular, they did studies on college students, and they found that everyone experienced this imposter phenomena, but disproportionately white men were their GPA was not affected by it. And that's not to say anything. It just is what it is, right? And unsurprisingly, the more marginalized you get as a population, the higher the correlation of effect goes up. So women are more affected by it. Affected, like everybody experiences it, but the actual effects, like having a negative effect on your life, women, and then people of color, traditionally marginalized societies. Like the further down in scope you go, the more marginalized you get. They've seen a correlation, the higher effect it has in their life. Implications are different for men and women. It's linked in clear ways to their GPA. And I don't know if you guys have ever heard of stereotype threat. Do you guys know about stereotype threat? So it's where individuals are aware of stereotypes and you don't believe them, but the awareness of them disrupts your performance. So it's kind of like when I answer the phone at work and I'm using my nice receptionist voice, right? This is Kelly. How can I help you? And I get a guy on the phone that I know thinks I'm just some dumb woman with weak arms and is insisting that he talks to a man because, I can't understand repair. That's playing in my head and it's affecting my performance, right? It's really hard to not let it. It's there. And so, they're thinking that this stereotype threat and the imposter syndrome play hand in hand. And what stereotype threat are we all worried about as bloggers? Every single one of us. That blogging is dead, that blogging is not a real job, that you can't make any money blogging, all this crap that we've heard on the periphery or maybe even been told. A lot of family members try to talk bloggers out of going all in on their blog because they're trying to protect them, right? They don't get how it can work. I feel like the reason we are so inundated with this imposter phenomenon in the blogging world is because we have these stereotypes playing in our head on loudspeaker. That blogging can't make you money, blogging isn't a real job, that blogging is dead, whatever it is. We have these stereotypes threats playing in our head all the time. And then when somebody tells us, hey, you're doing a really great job, and we flash back to all the times we weren't doing a great job, and we have this clash of competing thoughts in our head, suddenly we just know we feel like crap, right? We're not consciously aware that all of that is happening, but it is. And suddenly we feel really like it's really deflating, right? Like, you guys tell me in the chat, how do you feel when the inner critic has the microphone and it's telling you you're not good enough, that you're an imposter, that you're a fraud, that you're going to be found out. It makes me feel like giving up, and not necessarily giving up on my blog entirely, but giving up on whatever task I'm doing right then, because that task is causing those feelings and I want to get away from those feelings. Another thing to keep in mind is that the way we talk to ourselves, like we say things to ourselves that we would never ever say to even like an acquaintance, let alone a good friend. The way we talk to ourselves is really harsh. So when you are being super harsh on yourself, I would ask yourself if you would say that to even an acquaintance, but let alone your best friend. And another part of the problem with imposter syndrome or imposter phenomenon being so prevalent in blogging communities is that studies have shown that competitive environments are actually incubators for these feelings. And it's not even competitive outwardly, which blogging kind of is. It's signs everywhere that people are more accomplished than you, which blogging definitely is. Somebody said it yesterday. Ro, I think it was you in yesterday's live stream. You talked about how you will see people popping into Facebook groups and saying how they've hit 10K per month in their first 4 months, and you're years in and still well below that. Right. So we have these outwardly signs all around us that we're not where we're supposed to be. And that's an incubator, that's a breeding environment for imposter syndrome. And one thing that one of the leading researchers in imposter phenomenon is a guy named Kevin Coakley. He's a professor in Texas, and he recommends looking at evidence that you're not actually a fraud every day. And if your job doesn't provide outward evidence, he recommends keeping a work diary of your successes. So document your successes as they come up, because when your imposter syndrome has the microphone, you're not going to be able to remember, you're not going to be able to refute it with the evidence that you know is in there somewhere. It's going to be too loud. So he recommends keeping a little work diary, and you could just make it a Google Doc, right? It could be like your emergency kit, break glass when imposter syndrome is out of control, and list out all of your accomplishments in there, no matter how small. And he says that he personally uses this daily for like 5 to 10 minutes, just to remind himself he's not a fraud. And then when we have a bad day and we have a misstep, like, let's keep in mind that it does not mean the end of the world. It does not mean that everyone was right and we're actually a fraud. And Michelle Obama actually says that when she's really suffering from imposter syndrome, she just puts her head down and works harder and lets the work speak for herself. And this is kind of where I am going with the thought that our imposter syndrome actually doesn't matter. We all just stop trying to get rid of it and focus on doing the damn thing anyway. I'm all for combating your imposter syndrome. I'm all for keep your work journal with all your successes in it. Keep your kudos file so you have evidence that the story you're telling yourself is not true. But if Michelle Obama, Oprah, Tom Hanks has imposter syndrome, I mean, I don't think we're going to get rid of it. And that's the conclusion I've come to. Yes, we should combat it. I don't think we're ever going to get rid of it. And I don't think it matters. Here's what matters: doing the damn thing anyway. I have come to the conclusion after years of blogging that the greatest predictor of success is somebody's ability to put their head down and focus on one thing till it's done. So can we put our imposter syndrome on a shelf and just do the damn thing anyway? If it's not going to go away, we can combat it and get it to quiet down a little bit, but take it along with us on the ride and just do the damn thing anyway. Because like I said, my initial instinct is to run away. So when I start feeling imposter syndrome, I have that dissonance in my head and I don't really realize all the synapses that are firing to make me feel bad. I just know that I am having a bad day. I'm not on top of my writing game, and suddenly I feel like an imposter and I feel really crappy inside and I want to get away from this feeling. What happens if I give in every time and I run away from that feeling? Well, I'm never going to get any writing done. I'm never going to get the damn thing done. And what if the difference between bloggers who make it and bloggers who don't is just the ability to grit through it and get the thing done anyway. And Viola Davis actually said something really interesting. She says her imposter syndrome keeps her humble and it allows her to not rest on her laurels. So it might not be that we have imposter syndrome in spite of our accomplishments, but our imposter syndrome actually pushes us to get those accomplishments. Remember, James Wedmore says, why is this happening for me? Not why is this happening to me? So maybe our imposter syndrome is there to make us better. And yeah, it feels like crap when it really has the microphone, but maybe we can reframe it in a how is this serving me manner, right? Because it keeps us humble, it pushes us to keep striving and refining our craft and being better. I hope that helps you all understand where your imposter syndrome, your imposter phenomenon is coming from. And, if Oprah can feel like an imposter, maybe we should just give ourselves to feel like an imposter too and just do it anyway. Do the damn thing, y'all. Whatever it is that you've been wanting to do and you haven't been doing, just you need to do the damn thing already. All right, friends, I love you so much. If you need anything from me at all, please don't hesitate to tag me in the group. I am here for you. I'm here to help you build your blogging empire. Let's all go do the damn thing. Okay? Pinky swear. Hi. All right, girl, it's on. Made a pinky swear oath. We're all going to go do the damn thing.